So tell me about Jesus. What did he do? There's no plan B. Guess what happens? Everything goes downhill. As a bloke, you're powerless. You can't do anything.
Do we call you Nathan?
Oh, call me Lindz. I know it's Nathan on there.
Hey, Lynn, lovely to see you again. But
Okay,
I know the last time I spoke to you was at For King and Country's gig. For anybody that didn't see it, I will put the link below.
Yeah,
That's
come
just
on.
been released on YouTube
Yeah,
too.
come on. Yeah.
But today we're going to be unpacking, I think, something perhaps a little bit rawer, deeper,
Out there,
and
edgy.
a little bit more edgy, starting with this brand new album. So I would love to
Yeah.
hear from you a little bit about what this album is about. And I did just play your new track, Rewind.
Yeah, Rewind is it's kind of going back to our first love, really. And there's two kind of like, it's a double entendre. The first thing is love drum and bass. I've always loved drum and bass. I grew up skating. Me and my mates used to like do D&B DJ, and I had a bedroom DJ set up, and me and Lewis were in the studio, and he started playing this beat, and I was like, mate, we're going old school. This is going back to our youth, mate. This is thick. And then I was like, hang on a minute. We should couple this, because it is nostalgic. It's kind of nostalgic, but it's 2025 nostalgic. Couple it with the theme that when a young person connects to Jesus and they respond at one of our shows and they put their faith in Jesus, their past is done, their future's yet to come because of what he did on the cross. Remember that moment. Like that moment was the moment you stepped across the line, you lived your life on purpose, and you became a different person. Rewind to that moment and remember it. Because I clearly remember when I became a Christian. And there's lots of people that have had these transformational moments. Some people have them first thing in the morning every day. And I'm like, don't forget those moments. So it's everybody's in the crowd like this with their hand up, rewinding. And I'm saying that moment that you decided to step across and say, whatever's happening in my past isn't holding me back from my future because of what Jesus did. That's a moment to remember. So rewind to it and just keep it here. And it's kind of, I guess it's got that sort of nostalgic feel to it. But at the same time, it's just to say to them, you're not failing. Don't never give up on life. This is all our message of anti-suicide, mental health. Is like, there's a God that's got a purpose for your life. Just keep it there. So that was the sentiment of the song. And it's just me and Lewis. We just literally wrote it within about half an hour. And it just went up. And we sent it over to America to get Solly to record it and sent back. And I was like, this is nuts. And it goes off live. It goes bananas. Really good.
And I mean, obviously, I've listened to it. I've played it out on my show, but I love that concept of, what I was reading you saying of like having this restart, because sometimes we can have a moment. Mine was quite dramatic as a teenager, and it was decades ago, but it was like that. I have to keep going back and remembering, because that's what keeps me alive.
Yeah.
It's what keeps me focused, because we do go through journeys.
Yeah.
Go through the challenges of life. And so how have you found for your own journey that kind of, like you said, it's changing the narrative? Now, we can't change what happens in our life, but we can change the narrative. So how would you explain that to someone?
Yeah, I mean, I read lots of like leadership books and lots of kind of like, not motivational books, but like lots of motivational speakers that they'll talk about this a lot, is you are what you think. And I think that once you say it and you put it out there, it's kind of, there's power in the word. James, talks about the power of the little rudder that turns a massive ship. It's got power. And I'm my biggest weapon is my mouth, but it's also my biggest downfall. Is I can easily start speaking down, and then guess what happens? Everything goes downhill. Or I can start speaking up. And I've had this real challenge over the last, because we moved back to London. It's been a bit of an upheaval for us as a family, but really good, in a really good way. And I've just had this firing up of reading the Bible and just getting those promises in my head. So that's what comes out. So when, I've just come out the gym and I was sat in the steam room about half an hour ago, and I was there going, can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. No weapon formed against me can prosper. Do not be anxious about anything. And I just read it off, and I'm like, that's so key to the ups and downs of life, because you are what you think, and then you become what you say. And I'm like, I've got to really guard that and just make sure that what's going in is what's coming out. And that for me has been a real challenge for the last couple of years, to get back into the Bible. I'm doing like a couple of apps on YouVersion, and then I'm slowly going through the Psalms, and there's bits there I've gone, I don't think I've ever read this. Why have I never read this? This is amazing. And I probably have, but I just don't remember it. And I'm like, right, that's so good to get that back into your knower. So that's what comes out. So yeah, that's the challenge, isn't it?
That is the life, isn't it? If we don't go back to the life source,
exactly,
it very quickly. And I've just come back from a funeral, and it really does put in perspective, I think, that our life on this earth is short.
yeah,
However many years that is, it's a short time. And we are going to go through challenges. We are going to go through, I know when, you know, a lot of people, and I've had the privilege of praying a lot of people through and into the kingdom and been that ministry space, but, you know, people think, oh, it's going to be amazing, it's great. And then very quickly they face issues and challenges in life.
yeah,
They lose hope. And that's when the negative can come out. And like you said, then it affects your mindset and depending on the people around you. And I know last time I interviewed you, you were talking about it's really important to get plugged in with a strong network or a church or people that can help support you. But you've gone on your own journey. I didn't realize this before. As a family, I know you have 2 children. Are you able to tell us a little bit about that journey so that people can relate that what you're saying is not just you know, airy fairy, but you've had to really ground?
So question time in our schools lessons, this will come up. So what's the toughest thing you've been through? And I grew up, you know, west of London, quite a nice place. I mean, my dad had to do 2 jobs to keep us because we were 3 boys, but there was always, you know, we'd always fed. I didn't go through any kind of like major life calamities at those points until we got to this to the baby making process. And we were married like 4 or 5 years, and things just they just weren't adding up. So we went to doctors. They said there's nothing wrong, you need to just keep going. And I was like, okay. Went a year later, there's still nothing wrong. Okay, so we had all the tests, all the, you know, everything, ins and outs, and checking everything, and we can't find anything wrong with it. Like, we just don't know what's happening. Like, we maybe try IVF. So we did 3 runs of IVF, and, you know, Lucy, then unfortunately they failed, which is like having a miscarriage. And at that moment, as a bloke, you're powerless. You can't do anything. And most blokes, if you're really honest, you want to solve every problem. Like, you do want to just fix. You're a fixer, and I'm a fixer. And I just couldn't do it. And I was just like, I'm sat like, oh, this is ridiculous. What's going on? But I distinctly remember on our first date, Lucy and I was just sat in a pub getting some food. I was like, what do you think for the future? And we're asking all these like big questions. And I said, well, I've always thought that I'd adopt somewhere, somehow. And she goes, oh, I come from a family that adopted and fostered 107 kids. So I'm really into it. And I was like, whoa, let's try the homegrown bit first. And there's a whole story to this thing as well, in that it started inspiring me to write songs off the back of it, and about how, you know, tough things are, difficult things are. And I just remember being in this adoption meeting, and there's like 20 different families going through the same stuff, couples. And this Asian couple sat next to us, and it's as far as culturally, this isn't a thing that they would consider. So they had to be really talked through it gently. And they passed around this little photo of a tiny little boy, must have been about 1. And his dad jumped up and he was like, could that be my son? Could that be my son? Burst into tears, hugging this photo. And it's just a little boy. And it was an example. And I literally it hit me like a wave. I was like, there's no plan B. There's no plan B. There's only plan A. Because if it's plan B, it's plan B for their life, and that can't be right. That's got to be plan A for their life. So therefore, it's plan A for my life. So God it ordained us from the beginning of time to adopt our 2. We weren't supposed to have homegrown. We were supposed to adopt and go through this journey. And that lifted this guilt, weight, I wasn't going through depression, but just like this, whoa, flipping heck. And I wrote the song No Plan B, or Plan B, that's on our last EP. And I get kids in the audience now to shout, no plan B. And I'm saying, it's your life. There's no plan B for your life. There's no plan B. And it's just helped me, firstly, empathise with those tough moments, empathise with those moments where I'm out of control and I can't do anything. There's nothing I can do to make this better. But also fully rely on God and just go, I'm going to grab your coattails of this roller coaster life and just you drag me through this, because, you know, I'm failing on my own.
How long you'd been married at this point? How long this journey had been?
We got married at 26. It was 5 years. No, 5 years before we started. So, and then the journey was 10 years. So 15 years we've been working through it, and that's a long old wait. But I'm on tour, and we took a tour with a mainstream artist called Jason Derulo in like 2018, 2019. And Lucy sent me this profile of a little baby girl, and she scrolled through. She said she's really similar to Jack. So we adopted mixed race kids, so they're Jamaican Irish.
Wow.
And she said, just read it. And I scrolled to the top, and I was like, there's no name. Luce, I'm sorry, there's no face, there's no photo. She said, no, there's not. But they get you to this point, it's called Link Maker, and they link you. So they've approved you for adoption, and then they find the children at the same time. So you're doing this. She said they've done really well. Read her profile. So I scroll back through, and I'm like, yeah, really similar. Scroll back to the top. No photo. I was like, Lucy, visually, I need to kind of see something. Anyway, went back to the top, and I said, Lucy, have you seen her birth name? And she was like, I haven't even clocked it. And I was like, have a look at her birth name. You've got to say yes now. Say yes now. And Lucy had this dream a few years before we'd even had Jack. So this is like 15 years ago. And there was a lady in our church, Deborah Green, who's like a bit of a kind of prophetic type character. And she got Lucy to stand up and said, you're going through this journey, aren't you? And she said, yeah. And she said, your kids are going to have this unique message about their story, about their life, about where they've come from, about how they came to their forever family. They're going to be unique messengers of their faith. Sat back down. So fast forward to when I'm on the bus, and I scrolled through, and I'm in Zagreb, so I've got no way getting home. But I looked up and I said, "Look at her name. Say yes." So Lucy just immediately said yes. So our Willow's birth name originally, first name Unique and second name Messenger.
Wow, you couldn't write that, could you?
You couldn't write that. So we were just like, right, that's nuts. That's insane. That's just insane. So we adopted off that.
There is no plan B, because I'm a foster parent, and myself and my husband, and although I wasn't adopted, my sister, one of my sisters was. Right. Most people think I am, because I'm half Chinese and my mum's English. Right. But it was actually my sister. But what I've learned through that process, because she came as a baby, but it was like she was my sister. But I never saw her as any different. But learning about when I became a Christian, and, that God has adopted us into his family, that meant so much more. Yeah. Because it realized that God wanted us. He chose us. There was no plan B.
Exactly.
That adoption is what God does to us.
You're all over it. All over it. That's exactly it. And that's the message we share in our gigs. I advocate for a home for good now, because that's where Willow came through. And I'm like, yeah, man, if there's Christians out there's 6,000 young people caught in the adoption system. Let's get them in families, get them in forever families, because it's what Jesus did to us first.
Amen. Well, this is a plug I didn't expect to have, but Sound of Hope as well, for the film that I covered. Anybody want to know more about adoption and fostering, check that out as well. So this is powerful. I think what you're doing is sharing with these young people that when the plan doesn't look like we want it to look, that you go back, you hang on to what when you got saved, that there is something tangible that we can, that hope is why we made that decision. What about the rest of the album? How's that going to?
Yeah, it's good. I mean, so this is kind of like the opening song for the rest of it, and we're going to waterfall onto this one, drip feed singles out, and then probably bring out the new one in either the end of this year or the beginning of 2026. And a lot of the songs are real authentically thought through, going back to what our first love of the platform of music for the purpose of the gospel. What do people want to hear? What do they want to hear from us? They want to hear the stories. They want to hear the heart. They want to hear the authenticity. Well, then, let's do that. And then Rewind feels like when me and Lewis look at each other on the stage, we're like, yeah, man, this is a banger. This is us. And that's what and in some ways as well, slightly more age appropriate for us. DJ set, getting a little bit older. We're not doing pop stuff anymore. That's not really the kind of vibe.
I still see you dancing around though. Lots of energy.
Yeah. 100. That's not going anywhere, because that's just always been me, and I've always been the silly white boy that dances like a wally on a dance floor. So I'm always up for that. But it's also just having that. We're not trying to be bad boy MCs. Like, none of us are trying to be bad boy rappers, because that's just not us. But we still can connect with you through this and just use it authentically.
So what sort of themes do the other tracks have?
One of my favourite ones is called I Lost Myself. And Jesus said for anyone to truly live, they first need to deny themselves, take up the cross and follow me. So it's I lost myself, and it's I lost myself. And there's a cheeky feature on there that you'll know. So I'm not going to give too much away, but that's going to be a good one. I'm really looking forward to that one.
I'll be watching out for it.
And we'll have to do an interview about that one when you come, get him in the studio as well.
Sounds exciting. We want to know more already, but totally. I get it. You're keeping us on tender hooks, but we only have a couple more minutes. So what would you like to share with us? Anything that perhaps nobody's asked you?
I think a lot of people have this stereotype of faith, and you've heard about this quiet revival, and people are walking off the street, particularly young lads are connecting with Jesus. And I think there's when it says the harvest is plentiful but the workers are few, the harvest at the moment is a different generation that don't have the stereotypes that I grew up with or my mates grew up with. The parents my age aren't taking their kids to Harvest Festival or to, you know, spring harvest and stuff. There's just this blank screen that you're looking at an ocean and just saying, and kids that, you know, 10, 15 years ago, kids were asking me questions like, why can't Christians smoke weed? Why can't they have sex before marriage? Why is it 101 ways to make my life more boring? And they call us God Squad and Bible bashers. That doesn't exist anymore. We don't get called any. We're just like, yo, you're the guys that fully inspire our what's it's off. And I'm like, yeah, that's the point. So you've got this openness to faith, and then you couple that with the power of music, and you kind of combine those two things with the words, and you just got this thing that's really rolling and really working. But you've also got, you know, those questions now that kids are asking are like, so tell me about Jesus. What did he do? You know, it's not like Christians are boring, mate. Don't get involved with that. And so we're building parent areas at our gigs. You got 1,000 young people in, and you've got 300 parents stood at the top with their little gin and tonics and little flasks. They've all come in, and Dad's coming up to me, shaking my hand, saying, mate, if I'd heard Jesus like this when I was a kid, I'd be a Christian now. I'd be in church. And I'm like, well, come back next week because I'm going to start a Parents Alpha. You know, it's not just for them, it's for you as well. You know, we're getting parents turn up, 35 parents turned up for an Alpha last time.
Love it.
And I'm just like, God's on a move. He's doing something significant.
It is. And I think definitely take me back to my roots that time, because obviously I was in a band and that's exactly what we were doing.
Yeah, there you go.
It's like, it's not going back, but it's taking the heritage, like you were saying, and bringing it into 2025 and beyond.
Exactly. No, it's great. And, you know, if you ever think that your story's negated, that's not true. Your story is your story, and that's what makes it authentic. So tell your story, because your story then becomes his story and then becomes history.
We're in history in the making. Bless you, Lindz.
Nice to see you.